Hi, this is CCM6, Expressions with Fractions and Decimals. An expression is a mathematical phrase that contains operations, variables, and or numbers. Some examples of some expressions would be 2 times y plus 7, 1/10 times a, and then 25 times the quantity of b plus 1. These are all algebraic expressions. You can also have numerical expressions that are just containing all numbers. And notice that there are no equal signs in these expressions. Expressions don't contain equal signs. Today we're going to write an expression to represent the following. And after we write the expression, I want us to evaluate also, so we can get a feel for what's going on. Some of the evaluations might contain fractions and decimals, and you might not feel comfortable with evaluating with fractions or decimals. If not, just watch what I do, and then maybe you'll catch on. Sam's age in 8.5 years when X represents his age. So what are we doing? That doesn't really make sense. Well, we're writing an expression to represent the scenario. What will Sam's age be in 8.5 years from now? And X will represent his age now. So if X represents his age now, in 8.5 years, he's going to be 8.5 years older, so we can add that to what he is now. You can write 8.5 as 8.5 or as 8 1/2 in fraction form. So that is my expression to represent this scenario. Now let's take it a step further. Let's evaluate this if Sam is 10 years old. So if Sam is 10 now, then instead of X I would write 10. And then I would add 8 1/2 to it. Well, if Sam's 10 now, and if I'm adding 8.5 to it, he's going to be 18.5. Okay, number 2, the value of any number of dimes, comma, k. So what this is saying is we're going to just write an expression using the variable k. That's going to stand for any number of dimes. And I'm going to write an expression that represents value. So let's think for a second. How much is one dime worth? 1 dime is worth 10 cents. How do I write 10 cents? Well, I can write 10 with a cent sign, or I can write it like this. And I could put a dollar sign next to it, but in expressions, we aren't going to bring in our dollar signs or cent signs. We're going to leave it just the decimal, and I'm going to have any number of dimes. So I'm going to multiply 10 cents or 10 1/10 times k. So that could be, I could have like 1 dime, which would be worth 10 cents. I could have 5 dimes, which would be worth 50 cents. Do you guys get the idea? This is the value of 1 dime, but I'm going to multiply that by how many dimes I have. I don't know how many dimes I have, so I'm going to replace what that number would be with a variable, k. Now, let's evaluate this scenario. Let's say I have 15 dimes. How much money would I have total? What would the value be? What would it be worth? So, I'm going to multiply 1/10, which is the value of a dime, times how many I have, 15. And like I said, if you don't feel comfortable multiplying this out, that's fine. What I do, since I'm taking 1/10 of this, I'm just going to move the decimal of 15, that whole number, I'm just going to move it to the left once. So I'm going to have $1.50. You can also think about it. You could count on your fingers how many dimes you would have. I'm sorry, how much money you would have if you had 15 dimes. You can kind of count it that way. I could add this 15 to itself 15 times. There's many ways you can do it. You might not have learned how to multiply with decimals yet, but just in case, there's some strategies you could use. Let's go to the next couple problems. I'm going to have you do these on your own. Think about what's being asked. Think about what variables you're going to use. Do they give it to you or do you make up your own letter? And think of the relationship between what's happening and what you're trying to find. Pause the video, and then when you're ready, push play, and I'll walk you through these problems. Okay, this is a tricky one. If Tim has 4 times as many baseball cards as John, and if B represents the amount Tim has, then how much does John have? Well, I kind of like to think about who's got more, Tim or John? Well, Tim has more. He has a lot more. So if B represents how much Tim has, John will have 1/4 of what Tim has. He'll have less. He'll have 1/4 of it. This is my expression. I don't need equal signs. I don't need to set up an equation. I just simply write that 1/4 times B, that's how many cards John will have. Now, if we know that Tim has 12 cards, and remember, Tim has more than John because he's got 4 times as many more, we're going to multiply. What's 1/4 of 12? Well, if I have 12 cards laid out and I split it into 4 equal groups, how many is in each group? 3 cards. So John will have 3 cards. If you want to think about it in reverse, if John has 3 cards, Tim has 4 times as many as he has, well, Tim will have 12. So you can always work backwards. If in any scenario you are not given values to plug in and evaluate, make up your own. Make up your own scenario to check your work and see if it makes sense. Hopefully you got this one right. A quarter is worth 25 cents. And I'm not sure how many quarters I have. So I'm just going to write 0.25 times Q. If I have 40 quarters, then I just have to think, okay, I can multiply this out if I know how to multiply a decimal and a whole number, or I can think, okay, 4 quarters is $1. So 40 quarters will be $10, or $10. So this is going to be $10. Okay, you've got 2 more to go. Why don't you pause the video, try these out, and then when you're finished, push play, and I'll do them for you on the board. Bill earned $5 mowing the lawn. He earned more money the next day. Write an expression that shows the amount of money Bill has earned. So if he earned $5 and he earned more money the next day. It did not give me a variable in this situation, so I'm going to use M to represent how much he earned the next day. More money the next day. So that's my expression. Now, you might have chosen a different letter. If you chose a different letter on your paper, that's fine, as long as you have 5 plus and then your letter. Evaluate the scenario if Bill earned $11 the next day. Well, Bill has a total of $16 now. Pretty easy. Last one. Write an expression for what Angie has if Arnold has 2 times as many pencils as she does, and if Y represents the number of pencils. So we need to know what Angie has. Arnold has 2 times more than she has. So who has more in this case, Arnold or Angie? Arnold's going to have more. So if Y represents how much she has, or number of pencils, I would say I'm trying to write an expression for Angie. And so number of pencils should be for Arnold. There we go. So Angie has actually half of what Arnold has. If you think about you and the person sitting next to you in class, you've got a certain amount of pencils, they have 2 times as many as you. Well, if you think of it backwards, you've got half as many as they do. So this 2 here, 2 times as many, and then half, they can be inverses of each other if you're talking about 2 different people in a scenario. Like I said, you and the person sitting next to you in class, if they have 2 times as many more pencils than you, then you actually have half of what they have. So let's evaluate this if Arnold has 8 pencils. If Arnold has 8 pencils, then Angie has 4 pencils. P-E-N-C-I-L-S. So does that make sense? Arnold has 8, so Angie has 4. Arnold has 2 times as many as she does. This makes sense. Always go back, and like I said, if it doesn't give you numbers to substitute in to evaluate, you pick something and evaluate and check to see, is what I'm writing down making sense? There you go. That's writing expressions containing fractions and decimals.